Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Play Poker? Yeah, let's play poker! Yeah, let's take a seat. Yeah. I've just rediscovered the 10-cent, 20-cent 5-card draw for me. I think I have a certain edge that I can play on. At least it worked for me the last couple of hours. I already wanted to make a video before, but yeah, I didn't set up my mic correctly, so yeah, I have just a video without sound, or without commentary basically, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna upload it or post-comment it. I don't think... yeah, of course, poker you can post-comment on, and maybe we can analyze some of the hands I played. There were some interesting things, and I doubled my stake in 45 minutes, so it wasn't a bad session for me. And I have to say sorry for going south, guys. And I have kings on the big blind. That's an easy call. Let's just stay in the hand for a second. He drew 2, most likely to check behind, and he checks behind aces. Yeah, standard play. I wouldn't necessarily play it that way, but not that important. Sorry guys for going south. I have broke. I mean, as long as I'm not violating any standards set by PokerStars, I don't really have to apologize for booking my winnings. Another way for saying going south just means to book your wins and go back to the table. In PokerStars, it's restricted to immediately sit back on the table you just went off on. But after some time you can, and that's what I did with this table. They are just 2 10-cent, 20 cents open. Okay, so this is an interesting spot. I think I will call there, just to get the info right away, what he played this way. I'm just calling for info, I'm not sure this is a good call. Yeah. Well played, motherfucker. Call draws. Call bets, KKxx. Not really big of a note, but never mind. Okay, so I have to break down. I made a whole commentary on the last video, and it was all not recorded. So yeah, I will just repeat myself for now, which might be a little bit annoying for me. I'm not sure if I will cover everything, just because I might have thought I mentioned it already, but did in my last video. Okay, so no spot to do anything with my 2 pairs here. It's not by any way a slow play. I would have even... I don't know why he shows 9s there. I would have check folded. I would have folded to any bet with this 2 pair. Just FYI. So, 5-card draw. The ropes for 5-card draw. Yeah. Okay, let's start with how the game's played. You get dealt 5 cards, then you bet. Then you draw, just like now. Then you don't improve. And then you can maybe just bluff. Bet bluff in the spot. No. Not because I was thinking that he has played a draw, because it's a good spot to play a draw if you already have 2 people in the hand. And he cannot call a good pair if he is somebody who might have 2 pairs behind him and before I misbetted. So that's why I made the bluff there and it worked. I'm pretty sure my 7s were beat, at least by him. So yeah, I'm happy about that. But on many cases I wouldn't recommend bluffing in this level. You should play your mediocre hands aggressive. That's my edge on this level. But let's come back to the basics of 5-card draw so you understand the game. So I think the drawing is pretty clear. Maybe you even know the basics of the game, like how it is played from the old days, where this was the was poker when people thought 5-card draw was the main type of poker. At least I don't know. We in Germany thought this is how you play mainly poker, with 5 cards. I think back in America it was also much more popular, like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. But still today I think it's a very fun and underrated game, and I would love if some of you guys would join me in it. Not that I can strip you off, but just to have more players in it. It's just more fun, I think. More games. So, what do you want to do in this game? Okay. Standard raise, if nobody is already in the hand, would be something like jacks or better. That would be a standard opening raise. If you want to steal the blinds, which I really want at this level, this is my edge at this level to steal the blinds, then you will also raise small pairs, draws, etc. And you will see me do that, I think, in this video a lot. In my last video you would have seen me a lot raising small hands and just stealing blind after blind with it. So I'm not really sure what to make of this big stack here. I get priced in to call my draw. If the small blind wouldn't have called, I wouldn't played this draw. And I won't bluff on it. I could have bluffed on it, but too much action. But I would have get a great payoff if my flush hit, I think. Unless he made a boat, which he didn't. More likely he had a busted draw. So okay, we have two aggressive players it seems, because KKxx Toki already proved to be somewhat aggressive. He re-raised me in some hands in my last session. So yeah, this might be a tougher lineup than last time, but I already said that in my last video, which wasn't recording. So this is again a strange spot, just because I know Guantano is extremely tight. So if trips. So I would have made a good play by just instant folding my jacks up. I have made this before. It's a very rare move, and I wouldn't recommend it to any beginner to really fold two pairs to a raise. Yeah, I cannot really recommend it to a beginner. It's if you have a good read on your opponents, you might want to fold two pair to raise in some scenarios. Back to the ropes. We didn't talk about the basics, so it's tough to talk about the hand in detail. So basics, you raise with jacks or better is a valid raise. Sort of a bluff is if you raise like below jacks any pair, which I do often in this limit. If somebody raised and you want to call, you should have aces or better. Sounds tight, but this is 5-card draw. If somebody raises, there's a big chance that he has already two pair or trips which beat your aces. And to call kings depends really on the players you're in with and how the hand played. Yeah, super loose bet by me, but I just love to extract value there. Could have saved me some money by just checking, but never mind. Might be something I should work on my thin value bets, but in other spots they are like giving me a lot of value. Why is he raising every hand? I've played him before and he limped every hand. Now he's raising every hand. This is turning out to be... okay, but still a valid raise with 2 pair. Okay, now we have trips. And now he doesn't raise. Great. Yeah, great. That's why you want to steal blinds, just because so often if you raise a big hand you will just have the whole table folding to you. So you want to make loose raises before the draw, which is like pre-flop and low limit hold'em is before the draw in here. So yeah, okay, re-raise is kind of the minds are not the minds are split, but yeah, the opinions differ on how to play the re-raise. I don't really want to say you what I would re-raise and what I wouldn't, but let's say many people, if you get re-raised, let's start with this. If you get re-raised, you really want to tend to fold, even if it's limited 5-card draw. Just because a re-raise is so often trips or made like a boat or flush or straight. And if you have something like just bare aces, you are pretty likely behind. That said, aces should call a re-raise. Maybe the only pair who should, just because you can make trip aces, and if you re-raise other trips against you, you will have a good payoff. But yeah, anything queens or worse you should easily fold to a re-raise, even though you might think, I can call so little money, like just 10 cents more, and I can draw with my bad pair and maybe improve to trips or 2 pair. But especially 2 pair might cost you some, because you improved to your 2 pair, but the opponent raised you with his trips and you will pay off his trips after the draw with your 2 pair. So playing tight on re-raises is, I think, a good strategy in general. And you shouldn't get too creative with your re-raises at this level, but you can do it in the higher levels. I've played higher levels of 5-card draw many years ago. It was a great time. It is a different game than this, just because players are much more aggressive, and you can, but they are also thinking much more about their hand. They will fold if they are sure they are behind, and not just call you down with like any random 2 pair. So there's definitely room for moves on the experienced players in this game, but you should never make a move on beginner of the game, because some will just call you down with their aces, and no matter what you do. So I think just playing aggressive is right here. And you saw raising my small blind with air, and that's my idea of what I'm doing here, is just to steal the blinds. Okay, queens is an easy fold to raise. In most scenarios, if I'm in the big blind and the small blind is raising me, queens is a call, but that might be the only situation. Maybe if the button is raising, then queens is also a call, but in all other situations, even though in you are in the big blind or something, it's a fold. Okay, stand pad with a stand pad, and the wheel paid off, which is kind of funny, because if you have a stand pad with a stand pad head and you're calling a wheel, then you're basically assuming your opponent is bluffing. It's the same as calling 2 pair or trips in this situation, basically. But I see so many people call it the wheel, it's ridiculous. The wheel is the worst made hand which you could stand pat with. Like, legit. Of course, you can stand pat bluff, but I have had one really fun, or really great situation. It was maybe my most favorite situation in all of my poker life, which I will note this hand underneath this video in the description. That was a really fun scenario which I really want to share with you guys, and which shows you how the game works on the higher levels, and it's really much about taking notes and knowing your opponents, because there will be often the same opponents facing you, just because it's such a niche game. And yeah, it's really worth taking notes on your opponents. As you can see, I already did take notes. I made this in the last couple of hours, so I don't know these players from my old days. These are all new notes. And yeah, maybe to share my reads with you, I have my read on him that he is limping very loose, and he is also calling very loose, and he is playing his big hands very strange. I saw him check behind, aces up in a not really scary hand where he really shouldn't have checked aces behind, and after that I saw an unraised pot, and okay, I could re-raise, but I just wanna play it safe and call, because he could have made a boat or quads. Unlikely, but let's just call. Yeah. Should have re-raised. Yeah. I just lost 20 cents in that hand, but there was very little chance that this calling guy was calling behind, so that's how I justify my play there, but should have been a re-raise, but maybe this is from my pot limit days, because if this was pot limit, this was yeah, not a clear call instead of a raise, but maybe a clearer call, just because if you raise there, you might very well get repopped by quads or a full house, which is not that unlikely that you have a pair and draw and get boated up or quads. It's rare, but it tends to happen in the situations where it's critical somehow. So don't underestimate that, and all, because I was of course assuming he drew 3, so he was on a pair, and then he re-raised my bet, which made it look like he had trips, and since I had the nut trips with the trip aces, I could have made a re-raise there, just to make his 3 queens pay off more. And he would have paid very surely, so yeah. Should have been a raise instead of a call. Anyways, let's not cry about 20 cents, so we could have won more. Basically, still, this is not a game. In the pot limit higher levels, it's really a game of making your pot, or extracting the most value out of your winning hands and losing the minimum on your good hands that are the second best hands. But on this level, it's really much about stealing the blinds. So you might see me, oh yeah, but it's tough to steal the blinds if you got 2 aggressive opponents here. He's also... No, he's Norway, not German. This guy is also German, he's aggressive. I really can't figure out this guy from Brazil. I somehow wonder why he didn't went already broke like 3 times. It's a really confusing playstyle. Yeah, I got the feeling that I didn't got the basics down of 5-card draw as good as I did it in my last commentary, which I didn't record again. And I think I also had a little bit sweeter situations, like here with the force I raise, just because I wanna steal blinds. But yeah, now the tightest player of all 3 who could have called me, calling me. Maybe I win the showdown with the force. Yeah, this situation I had before. Not really, because I had the situation with another guy where I was sure... I had it with this guy actually, where I was sure that this is a draw. Now it could very well be 2-pair and it's an easy fold. In other situations I might think, whoa, boat. Like I said, to have pet hands pre-draw is not unlikely, like you can see here. Yeah, nice. That's really nice. But in the situation where you could win with a small pair just because you think you're up against a busted draw who's trying to push you out of the hand, you can do that, and it's sometimes really breaking the spirit of an opponent who's bluffing too much. But in the situation that we just called, if I called with my force, like 2 hands ago, and I would have been right and this guy was on a busted draw, then it's very good to not call with my force, just because I would have showed the whole table that I was raising before the draw with a pair of force in my hand. And that's really a big tell to my game. If it comes off in some hand where I check with my force and the opponent is just checking down, so I show my force, it's okay. But I really don't want to make a hero call with a force just to show them to the whole table. Not in a cash game. In the tournament, and I've played 5-card tournaments before, which is also fun. It's also really fun to play 5-card in a tournament. It's a great game for a tournament, actually. It's really rare to see it. Sometimes there are sit-and-goes with 5-card draw. And there you have the situations where you want to call maybe with small pairs in tough situations, just to crush your opponent. Just to make him not run over you. Okay, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I said it in this video, but it's never a good idea to call a pet hand, and I won't do it now, even though I made the nut 2-pair. It's of course tempting, it's always tempting, but you should always fold to a stand pad. Always fold to a stand pad. I've won... I think I've talked about it, because I have one really cool situation where I had a read on the guy and I didn't do that. Okay, I could repop it. I will just play it I'm not sure if call is correct there. Could have been a repop. Yeah. Yeah. Damn it! Really angry at myself that I did, really mad at myself. Really mad. I should have repopped it there. Even though I won the hand, and yeah, I was booking on some sort of this, that I can just have an easy showdown with my kings, win a small pot, and this is fine in some way. But it was a great situation to re-raise my kings up, and I'm sometimes a little bit shy of re-raising 2-pair. It was a great situation. Damn it. Yeah. Anyways, where was my train of thoughts? Stand pads, never call stand pads. I've done it sometimes and underline it's not worth to call it. I've maybe 90% of the time they really have a pad hand, and 10% or maybe even just 5 to 10% of the time they are bluffing with the stand pad. And that's not worth calling. Even in limited, it's not worth calling. Just don't call the stand pad. And again, I will post a hand where I did call a stand pad, but it was a very special kind of stand pad, let's say. I will describe it further in the comments. It's just not good to like talk about the hand, I think, without being able to read what happened in it. So I will just write it down. I think it's easier to understand what happened, and it was my favorite moment of poker. I can still like clearly remember it. I'm not 100% sure of the amounts. I'm pretty sure on the pot itself it was around 60, maybe 70 dollars pot. And I know that I tanked down for like, I had like 3 seconds on my time bank left, or 8 seconds. I was really tanking hard. And I might tank sometimes a little bit much, but it was really a tank-worthy situation. I had a clear idea on what was happening, and he was just using all his chips to convince me of the opposite. And some of you guys who are not really familiar, not really familiar with the game, let's say, or maybe are not playing it in the same style, I don't know, because I guess you can play 5 cards much more aggressive than it's played online on PokerStars. But let's say in the normal game of the 5 card pot limit draw of the mid game, like 25-50 cents blinds, for this type of game, like it is played on PokerStars, it was a very good call, let's say, or not a loose call. But it was just fun. Yeah, let's just fuck it. Discard 4. Bam. If you wanna bet, yeah. Somehow he seems always to bet if I discard 4. I think that's a big mistake, because often if I discard 4 I catch them. And I think I also called him before. Oh no, that was another guy. He made the same move he just did there with jacks, which didn't make any sense at all, because jacks has great showdown value blind against blind, even after the draw, if nothing was raised before. But then he bluffs me, I think, with the jacks, because it's not the value bet there, because I wouldn't call tens for value or anything. But yeah, I discarded 4, I catched a king, or a pair of kings, and yeah, I was good. So let's hope he didn't have aces. Yeah. Okay, so a super loose hand just happened right there. I'm not sure if I want to stretch my luck by... I should have stretched it by pushing the deuces now. Again. But, yeah. Somehow, because this is of course the standard play, I raised with the hand before. I raised it with pocket deuce, which is of course not a standard play. It's a super loose play, but as I told you before, I tried to steal the blinds in this game. No, I had the threes. Okay, never mind, I had threes, but it's the same hand as the deuces, essentially. And he calls me, and he seems to have picked up already on the fact that I'm, or maybe he's just called a little bit loose with some kind of jacks or tens or maybe even queens. And yeah, I was booking on that when I bet behind my threes. I also bet there just because I really don't want to check showdown threes in the spot if I don't have to. Okay, of course I'm checking down jacks. I think it's the same reason you don't want to bet behind. Yeah, and I get a showdown on his calling range. That's a really super big tail. Great thing I checked there. Of course, whoa, what's happening? Of course, I couldn't have done anything but to check the call BB with doo-doo. Okay, so might be that I will bluff right in the spot. Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is a great laydown situation. There's no value in calling two pair anywhere, and I don't have to show that I raised either deuces or sevens in the spot. And they are ripping each other apart with full house over straight. Glad to help you bring some money in this pre-flop. Yeah, it's his own fault for calling a draw in the spot. Sorry for my language. I sometimes also tend to get mad at people who are playing ridiculous and somehow running good with it, but you should really calm down on that. I see. If you go to poker, you will in any game see a lot of people raging about a lot of stuff. It's just hilarious because you will. Okay, let's just make one raise there. That's super strange. Why would he raise there and then fold? Strange. Maybe he didn't see that I drew one. Either he was bluffing, which was really strange bluff, really strange spot to bluff. But he maybe didn't see I drew one. I think that was what's happening. He made the trips. And when somebody who is playing very passively before the draw isn't raising, and then he discards one and he's betting, he's at least representing a draw who's got there, and it's very likely it is a draw who got there. And then to raise, it's just a ridiculous move. And now it's the only time I play a flush draw conservative if I got two people calling before me, or maybe even raise and a call. I would still play the flush draw in a conservative way in this, just because I now have the whole table in front of me betting his ass off. I can safely assume that there's no two pair. I mean, maybe he checks two pair in the blind, but I should assume that he's either a straight or a weaker flush. I had the ace king flush, so that was definitely a re-raise there. Let's see what he had deuce trips. What is he doing? Do I fold? No, I don't think, because he's kind of loose. I'm just calling because, yeah, it's more likely he has two pair even or small trips than it is that he has like a real monster. Still, of course, not calling with my ten. Could have made a move on me with a bluff draw, which is a really great move. Never worked really out for me, but I think in theory it's just a great move. If somebody is raising, you have a draw. Instead of calling your draw and missing and then folding, you can just re-raise your draw, representing essentially trips, because most trips, when they re-raise, and of course mostly all of the trips, or most of the players re-raise their trips, of course, and they will just discard one. just to represent a big 2-pair instead of the trips. I do the same thing. I rarely draw or discard 2 on my trips. I normally discard 1, just to look like a strong 2-pair. And with a re-raised draw, you also discard 1, so you actually look like you have trips. And I think that's a great spot to bluff, even if you miss your draw, which you will most likely do, but you have a great setup for a bluff, just because you're representing trips so hard. And any decent player should fold a 2-pair in this spot, but I don't know, somehow I always make this move when people are in the mood to call me off. And on this level you shouldn't do it, because in this level, or on these stakes, on the micro stakes with the 10-20 cent, don't get too creative. Don't get too creative. Try to steal your blinds, and if you get some aggression from other players, you should just play it safe, fold, check, etc. If you have good reads on the aggressive players, of course you can think of maybe some maneuvers that play out well against them, but if you want to start with this game, which I of course want you guys to, or maybe join me on this level, or on PokerStars if you are playing on this on some other side, or I don't know. I would love you to join, just because you don't have that many players on this level. That said, it's also an advantage of this level, I think. And he is re-raising me a lot. Call draws, 5 seconds. Re-raise draws, 5 seconds. I hope we get to a showdown with this. I will just Hollywood a little for like some check raise. Okay, we get a showdown, great. Okay, he had trips, like I said. He was doing the 1 card discard with the trips. Yeah. And the great thing about having not so many players in this game, about this being a niche game, you can really keep your notes on the enemies and try to outmaneuver them. As you can see, I already have 2 notes on these 2 aggressive players here. Draw 2 and rough post, yeah, that's not a bad note to have. And the play I made, which I posted in the description, is also purely based on notes. Even very old notes. That it was based on the old note. I will also describe it in the description, but it was really a really old read I had on him. And I haven't even seen him doing it like, yeah, let's say a few months, and then he's doing it, and I'm like so sure that I got him. Okay, this guy raises under the gun. He is super loose. That's why I made the call with a bad 2-pair. You can argue about folding a bad 2-pair in the spot. Like, just to raise, just don't play the bad 2-pair to raise. In some spots it might be even worse than aces, just because aces can improve pretty easily, and a bad 2-pair like 4-4 deuce just isn't improving that easily. And yeah, my main game is to steal the blinds, and I just did it with 4s, and I won't try to do it with 3s, just back to back. But yeah, great thing I won the blinds there. What was I talking about before? Yeah, about calling with bad 2-pairs. Especially if you have a read on a player that he is like raising really tight. Some people won't raise aces. There are people out there, even in the big limits, who just limp aces and raise if they have only 2 pair or better. Or even limp bad 2 pairs and just raise good 2 pairs and trips. You can easily fold bad 2 pairs with it. You don't even have to draw the 2 pair. You can just instant fold it. I mean, it's tough to get the 2 pair in 5-card draw, I know. But there are situations where you just want to instant fold it to one single raise. Might sound tight, but it's an edge, believe me. Especially in the higher limit, it can be a real edge to get rid of your 2 pairs easily. In many situations, not only pre-flop, but also post-flop. Okay, let's see. Oh, trip 8. Sweet. Guess I lost the minimum there. And I just showed kings, I think. So I can just steal the blinds again. I showed kings, so they can assume I'm raising valid hands. Yeah, so maybe a little bit about the post-draw. What do you want to do in the post-draw? I am going very much for value in the post-draw, which means if I'm sure that my enemy is slightly behind me, like has the worst 2 pair, which is an often scenario, or even a worse pair, I have, or in the situation that I raise, somebody calls me, he draws 3, or he discards 3, I discard 3, and I have aces. I will bet. I will bet. Even though I didn't improve my aces, I will still bet. If he then re-raises me, fine, I will fold. If he calls me and has outdrawn me, fine. I'm completely okay with that. Okay, this is a strange situation. I think I will raise. It's a noob play to raise here. But I will raise and I will call. Raise, and if he raise, I will call. Okay. Yeah, it's a bad play. Thought so. Yeah. Super bad play. Why do I do a bad play and announce it? Just to show you what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't overplay your hands, like I just did there. Was a perfect example for overplaying your hands. I've called a fish before for exactly the same move, and it's a very fishy and new to the game move to overplay your trips in that fashion, because he limped and discarded 1, which is like a dead tail for a draw. Then after the draw he leads out, which is basically telling me I have a draw and I've got there. So I can believe that and fold my trips because he made a 5-card hand like a flush or a straight. Or I can disbelieve and I can call. So he shows a bluff, or maybe, and I was booking for a weirdly played 2 pair or trips, because sometimes people will limp their trips, discard 1, and then try to get value post draw. And for some reason I was booking on that, and that was like a very delusive dream to think that it was obviously a draw, and he very likely got there. I could have to be honest, I could have instant folded trip queens. Wouldn't have been a bad play at all. Wouldn't have been a bad play. And the only alternative to that play was calling. Never, ever was raising in an alternative there. And I just did it. And I even called the re-raise from him. 40 cents burned. I could have saved 60 at max. Yeah. Instead of stealing 2 blinds, I could have just made a good laydown there. So saving money is a very, very, very critical and crucial part of 5-card draw. Maybe even more important than extracting money is saving money. Because even though you have many rounds with very little action, with just people limping or one guy raising and everybody folding, and that will have 3 hands in a row. But then if you have a big action, it's most of the times it's really big hands clashing at each other, and you really don't want to overplay marginal hands. So 3 aces, okay. Some people would check raise there, or you might think a check raise is a great way. I think a bet fold is the right way to play this. Lead out, fold. Yeah, great. Just a call. Great! Yeah, that's why you lead out, because people cannot get rid of that 2 pair. Maybe there was trips in it, no. 2 pair. And yeah, this is the prime. Yeah, you can see that, right, you can. Yeah, great spot again, having trips called by this guy. And yeah, betting. Yeah, great. Yeah, you had 2 pair. I don't know, I don't care, I really don't care, I know you had 2 pair. Because you discarded 1 and then you called me. What else could you have? This is a loose bet. This is somehow I really... Yeah... don't... Fuck it. I really wanted to... Yeah, okay, great thing I got out of the way. It wasn't even a bluff. He was most likely betting a draw there that got there, and he was running into the boat. Let's check this out. No, he had kings from the beginning, thought it's a good time to value bet his kings up, and called the check raise of the boat, which is super bad play. And I will now value bet my 2 pair against his trips. What a goofball. Call 4-4. Call 4-4. Turns. Draw. Check calls. 4-4-4. Post. Goofy play. I don't know if I play the 4s. Yeah, okay. No, it was okay from him to just check call the 4s. I would have let out the 4s like I did before with my aces. But to call 4-4 in the big blind is just super loose. It's definitely worth a note. And it's to call too loose on your big blind is really a bad thing. Because this is not fucking... sorry for my language. This is not no limit hold'em. This is not no limit hold'em. You cannot outdraw your chances, your equity, your percentages, however you want to call it, are not like in hold'em. If you have a pair of 4s and somebody is raising you with aces ups, I never really calculated the chances, but I imagine they are quite small. I mean, of course, you can make your trips, which should be the same as flopping the trips no limit, which would be 1/7 around. Every 7th time you should be able to improve your pair to trips. But the enemy also has 4 outs to make his boat, if you are playing 4s against, let's say, 2 pair. I mean, you could make aces and 4s maybe, so you can make a bigger 2 pair. But still, you should, if you are behind, you are likely to even be like a 5%, 10% underdog. You can even be already drawing debt easily. Not easily, but you could be drawing debt in many spots, like, or drawing extremely thin, like drawing against a strong trip with your bad pair. Okay, now I'm really priced in with my sevens. I find many folds in similar spot with sevens. Just because even if I make trip sevens, it's not likely I would win. So in this spot, small pairs are actually a much easier fold. But looking at the opponent's hands, it should be okay to have calls there. Still, you shouldn't book on outdrawing your enemies in 5-card draw. Okay, this guy is raising a lot. Let's see what he raises. Okay, all calls, this is not good if he decides... Ooh. So I very likely got him beat on the draw. He's betting out. I don't think he's bluffing. One big rule I had to set for myself, especially for 5-card draw. For other games this counts a little, but for my personal 5-card game, it is still very important that I say to myself, if you don't know anything of the enemy, then you should assume he is not bluffing. I mean, in No Limit Hold, you have your Conti bets and stuff, and you also have some sort of Conti bet-ish elements in 5-card draw. But as you can maybe tell, it's much more unlikely to make some sort of C-bet. Mostly a C-bet you do if you have a really, really strong hand or if you are bluffing. And especially at the low limits, people just don't bluff that often. So, to make the right moves, you should really assume most of the time that people are not bluffing. Like he with his trips right there. But he did it before. Now it was the other guy, he did it. He drew 2 on queen and bluff post. Exact same situation, and with queens, but it was this guy who did it, so I have to fold. This guy is raising very loose, that's the only reason I thought about calling with aces there. In most spots it would be an easy fold. Come on, fold. I'm raising with air here. You have to fold, dude. Yeah, so only against aggressive player where you get some insight on, you should consider to make loose calls, meaning calls that would catch bluffers. And first, before you think you can call a bluff of an opponent, you first of all have to really get to know the rhythm of the game. 5-card draw has a very specific rhythm if you're playing it right. I'm not sure if I got the basics covered, like I said, I think. I got the very basics with like you're raising jacks or better as a valid raise. If you raise anything underneath, it's basically a very loose play or a bluff, like any way you want to like call it. If somebody raised before, then you are only continuing to play if you got aces or better. You can continue with kings, or even in some weird situations with queens, if you know your opponents are very, very loose, like raising just every hand that is raisable, then you can also call queens. But calling queens is a very loose move. You shouldn't do it. And yeah, I think that's like the very basics, like the starting hands. Like, yeah, play jacks or better if nobody is in the hand. If somebody is already in the hand, limped or raised, then you should only continue with aces or better. Be careful with your 2-pair. 2-pair is the most overplayed hand in 5-card draw. By far, I say. Second to it is trips. Also be careful with your trips. If somebody is just discarding 1 and you make trips, then don't re-raise them like I did there. That was a perfect example of when to not re-raise with trips. If somebody, especially when he played conservatively, if he raised me before, I could assume that he has 2-pair and just tries to get maximum value out of his 2-pair. And this was a bad bluff, because Toki wasn't calling me often. No, it's super bad bluff, actually. I was lost in my train of thought. I shouldn't have bet the 7s there. I mean, yeah, it was okay in the way that I don't want to check showdown 7s. So I think it wasn't that bad. But I should have known that X Toki is, especially with the fast check, he was like calling and instantly checking. I should have known that he is planning on instant calling also, because it's very easy to anticipate from me that I would bet, because I tend to bet post draw. I'm really one of the guys who is like sticking to the C bets in 5-card draw, even though I just said there is no real thing such as C betting here. But because I'm playing really, really loose on this level, I also C bet a lot. Just so in the way that people have a really hard time calling mediocre hands, and maybe sometimes calling, and re-raise aces super loose here. But should work. And just to annoy him, I will fire one more time. I really could have checked behind there, but I just wanted to annoy him and maybe get him to call with like garbage, like jacks or queens. Okay, now I could make my re-raise bluff draw, re-raise draw bluff, but bet spot in many ways, just because I played very aggressive against him the hand before, so he's very likely to have a showdown in this hand. And like I said, it's just not working out for me, the re-raise draw bluff, and especially not at this level. Yeah, nice. Okay. So yeah, this is a guy who's a lot better to c-bet on, because I saw him calling me with 4s. I can assume that he will call like any pair he has in the big blind, and that's just no good. Oh, and now I really suck out. Okay, okay. Shit. This is a super tough spot, I think. I've shown that I am... Let's see, instant hand... won't give me anything instant hand history on him. I think he's played very tight. Because the only valid reason to re-raise me there is trips. The only valid... Okay, let's make a good... I think that was a good fold. I would also love to get hate comments on that fold, but I think it was a good fold. If I'm booking him for being a solid player, or a tight player, let's say, and I think he is, because I rarely see him in any hand. And he is discarding 3 and re-raising me with that. I can assume that he made trips. 2-pair would call there. It would be a very loose play to re-raise 2-pair in that situation. He might be capable of it, just yeah, if he made like aces up. Of course, there's also I want to know his hand factor, but this factor has led me far too often to call. I am at the point where I don't pay extra to see the opponent's hand. In some rare situations I might, but this was a clear situation where I was not willing to, because it wouldn't be that big of a tell, because okay, maybe if he was playing like total air, if he maybe re-raised me there with jacks, I don't give him any credit for some kind of that play. That would be like a very level-headed play, which you just don't see at this limits. I would never give him credit for like a really good bluff there. Never. So I think fold was the correct decision. He might have. Only thing I can imagine in the spot is that he overplayed. Oh, this guy is raising so often. I'm tempted to call with jacks, but no. Another thing, it's no, that's not really. No. Yeah, I was going to say that you should, instead of trying to make all the hero calls in here, which you can really go broke on in 5 cut, because most people are not bluffing very much in this game. They're just maybe overplaying their value hands in some spots, and actually on this limit most people are underplaying their value hands in many spots. So you really have to exploit on that. And I think you can do this just by stealing the blinds all the time. Oh, okay, so he's calling me again. This is a strange sign. Okay, super loose bet. I made this bluff, which is debatable, no question, but I made it because he was drawing 1, and I think now I'm very sure that he was on a draw, straight draw or flush draw, and he has a super hard time calling my bet. Even if he has aces, he has to think about him having either 2 pair, which he would call in the situation very often, especially if he thinks long about his call, or he has made some kind of pattern, like got his draw with the flush or the straight, and is check raising. So it's super hard for him to call even with aces or kings. So I think it was a good spot to bluff my 8s. Maybe on a note I will also, or I think